So we'll begin with the customary chant, today being the discussion of the Bhagavad Gita. We'll begin with mantra for prostration of Sri Krishna, who taught Arjuna this great teaching called the Gita. Om Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. I bow down to Sri Krishna, the Jagadguru, the teacher of the world, who is the son of Devaki and Vasudeva, and who killed the demons Kamsa and Chanura, and who was the delight of his mother Devaki and the cynosure of all eyes. To Sri Krishna I bow. So the discussion today is the Arjuna Syndrome and the remedy for the syndrome in the Bhagavad Gita. Every chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, I suppose you know, the Gita has 18 chapters. Every chapter ends with what is called a colophon. Colophon is a small statement which is repeated at every chapter, only with the name of the chapter changed. I repeat the colophon. Om Tatsaditi Shrimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Sankhya Yogo Nama Dvitiyodhyayaha Karma Yogo Nama Tritiyodhyaya, and so on. This means Om Tat Sat is the name of Brahman, name of the ultimate truth. All of you know Om, and along with Om, Tat and Sat are also two words which denote the supreme reality. That is Tat. Tat means that reality. Sat is that reality which is the truth. Shrimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishatsu. This is in plural, although Bhagavad Gita is singular. In Sanskrit, you use plural to denote respect. In English, the Queen's English, we call it the royal we. The Queen of the King of England will not say I. We have come. That means I have come. That's called the royal we. Out of respect to oneself and to others, we use the plural. Bhagavad Gita. So, what is the Bhagavad Gita? It's an Upanishad. All of you heard the name Upanishad, definitely. Upanishad is Vedanta. In Vedanta, which is one of the 6 theistic schools of the Indian philosophical tradition, it's called Astika Darshana. Astika meaning the theistic, believing in the Veda. One of them is called Vedanta. It's also called Uttara Mimamsa. Mimamsa is a very interesting word in Sanskrit. Mimamsa meaning you come to a different conclusion after debating, after investigating, after carefully cogitating, analyzing, reflecting. Nothing is given to you per se, but you come to a conclusion at the end of a detailed discussion, usually between the teacher and the disciple. Most of the books in Hinduism are set as dialogues between the teacher and the disciple. The Bhagavad Gita is a famous example. Even in the Upanishads, the student comes and asks the teacher a question, and the teacher doesn't answer usually. The teacher nudges him by giving a tentative answer, a clue. Then he says, go and meditate and find out. Again the student goes, comes back. It's just like a research. Those of you who have done the research in universities, you will know that teachers don't really give you the problem and then the solution. They don't even give you the problems. You have to discover the problem for yourself and find out the solution, and the teacher, of course, puts his name in your paper. That means the teacher is one who doesn't give you the answer straight away. He gives you a tentative answer. He gives you the answer to you in a form in which it evokes further questions. This is the method of what is known as the dialectical procedure, which Socrates was very famous for. Socrates used to ask probing questions, and the answer to these questions will form the document. That is the idea. Mimamsa means a conclusion which is drawn at the end of the debate. So we talk about the jigyasa. Jigyasa is inquiry. You inquire into the nature of the truth and reality. So the inquiry into the nature of the ultimate reality is called Brahma Jigyasa. There is a book called the Brahma Sutras. Sutras are aphorisms, small pithy sayings. Economy of words. Don't talk too much. Have a little statement, very pithy, aphoristic, and try to find out the answer. Sometimes, as Vivekananda pointed out, the aphorisms became so small and so pithy that the meaning became slightly ambiguous. So, Brahma Jigyasa. Jigyasa, inquiry into Brahman. Dharma Jigyasa. Dharma Shastras. The Shastras, meaning the scriptures, which deal with Dharma, the code of conduct, how a man is supposed to be, called Dharma Shastra. Dharma Jigyasa means inquiry into Dharma, the nature of Dharma. Dharma is a very comprehensive word. It's unfortunately translated religion sometimes. It is much more than that. So the idea of jigyasa, and through jigyasa, the dialogue between the teacher and the disciple, at the end of which a conclusion emerges. This is the method which is used, and this is called Mimamsa. Mimamsa is a conclusion. Uttara Mimamsa is called Vedanta. Purva Mimamsa is the ritualistic portion of the Vedas. The Vedas have a ritualistic portion, which is Purva Mimamsa, and the knowledge portion, which is called the Uttara Mimamsa or Vedanta. In Uttara Mimamsa or Vedanta, there are three canons, three important texts. These are once again based upon the idea that first you have the theory, the tattva as they call it. Then you have the application of this tattva, the application of the theory in the modern world, in day-to-day living, and the justification of both the theory and the practice based upon a logic. So this is the procedure in all Indian tradition. The theoretical portion is called Vidya, knowledge, and since it concerns the spiritual truth or Brahman, is called Brahma Vidya. Brahma Vidya in the modern parlance will be the science of Brahman. We talk about pure science and applied science these days. Pure science is the theory. Applied science is called the technology or the engineering. In the olden days, we used to talk about institutes of science separately and institutes of technology separately. In India, we have a very old institute which owes its inspiration once again to Swami Vivekananda, called the Indian Institute of Science, which is a very famous, reputed, internationally acclaimed institute in Bangalore, in Karnataka, in the southern part of India. And we also have Indian Institutes of Technology, which are very famous, but no longer. Now we don't talk about Institute of Science and Institute of Technology separately. The latest concept is Indian Institutes of Engineering, Science and Technology. You can't any longer separate theory from practice, science from technology. So this book, the Bhagavad Gita, is called an Upanishad, although technically it is not one. The three important texts of Vedanta, they are called Prasthana-traya. Traya means three. Prasthana, the canons, the substantially dependable texts. They are called the Upanishad, Gita and the Brahma Sutra. Upanishad is called Shruti Prasthana. As you know, Shruti and Smriti are two Sanskrit words that are very common. Shruti literally meaning that which is heard by the disciple from the teacher. Nothing was written down. It is very remarkable how the entire knowledge was transmitted from the teacher to the disciple, and the disciple becomes a teacher and transmitted to his disciple, and so on. What we call Guru Sishya Parampara. Guru is the teacher, disciple is the Sishya, and the Parampara is the tradition. So over millennia, these have been handed over without being written down. To write down anything and use a book was considered a sacrilege. Even when we were children, even the modern days, when I was taught the Vedas and asked to chant and recite, my teacher would not touch a book, wouldn't allow any of his disciples to even look at a book. The idea being you should listen. It's coming back again. People no longer read books. You can see in the plane, the restaurants, in the public places, they always have something here, the ear plugged, and then keep on listening. How listening is very, very important rather than reading. Because the participation of the ear, which immediately goes deep into your psyche, is much more important than a reading in which you skip. When you keep reading, sometimes you skip, sometimes you doze off. It's called Shruti Listening. Shruti is actually the Veda, of which Upanishads are a part. And Shruti is considered as extremely sacred, unquestioned authority of the Shruti. Shruti is a documented evidence of the experiences of various rishis, we are spiritual scientists, over several thousand years. They documented their experiences, and anybody also can add his or her own experience in this document if he or she becomes a rishi. And Swami Vivekananda invited all of us to become rishis. You can become a rishi from Santa Barbara and add to this body of knowledge. That is the challenge with the rishis through. This is not a closed book. This is what we call nowadays an open-ended book. The open-ended thing is coming up in a big way. We no longer perform experiments which we used to do in physics or chemistry. The open-ended experiments, they call it a fab lab, fabrication and design laboratory. You don't give a problem for the student to solve. You give the gadgets, you give the various components and ask him to evolve a problem and create a design. So that was the kind of thing which was there. So you can add to this body of knowledge. And the rishis also said, these documentary evidences of the experiences of these great sages are applicable. If a sage has made a statement somewhere that I have had this experience, he throws a challenge to humanity saying that these experiences can be attained by anybody at any time, anywhere, provided the discipline is followed. This is science. So the science of Brahman is called Brahma Vidya, and the Brahma Vidya are the Upanishads. Bhagavad Gita is a Smriti, technically, because it gives the application, but interestingly, it gives both the application as well as the theory. So this is called a comprehensive, what we now use the word holistic text, in which the theory and practice are combined. So the colophon says, Bhagavad Gita su Upanishatsu, it is given the status of the Upanishad, Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre, in the seventh case ending, in Brahma Vidya and in Yoga Shastra. Yoga Shastra is the technology of Brahman, and Brahma Vidya is the science of Brahman. Yoga gives you the technology, and yoga once again based on the Sankhya. You may have all the theory in the world, and I may tell you, you are that infinite self and Brahman, then what do you do about it? The problem in Vedanta, for which Vedanta attracts lesser people than the yoga these days, yoga is dancing on the stage, everybody is running towards yoga because you can do something there. The yoga teacher tells you, come on, you come for yoga, sit down, you sit there. Close your eyes, close your eyes. Breathe through the left nostril. Exhale through the right nostril. You have something to do. You come to the Vedanta class and then say, come on, sit down. What do I do? Do nothing. Then you ask, how do I do nothing? This question was posed to Swami Vivekananda himself. In America, the Americans are always doing something all the time. Vedanta says, be. You are that infinite self and that's it. Then what? Then nothing. An American came and excitedly asked Swami Vivekananda, Swami, what am I supposed to do? Swamiji said, nothing. After a pause, he said, if you really can't do it, do some good to society. The most difficult thing to do is to do nothing. Because your mind becomes calm, you realize the ultimate truth and that's it. But the yoga says, there is a procedure, there is a discipline, there is a process by which you attain this. Vedanta will have none of it because this is not attained through a process. So I don't go into that philosophical wrangling. So Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre, and then what is it? Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade. You remember these two names. You are familiar with Sri Krishna, of course, and of course Arjuna. Krishna and Arjuna are having a dialogue. Samvada is a dialogue. It's a dialogue between God and man. Sri Krishna, we consider the God incarnate, not the son of God, but God himself comes down in India, in the Hinduism. He can send his son, but he chooses to come sometimes. So the idea of incarnation of God was there in Christianity also in a sense. Karna means flesh. Incarnation. And Christ was called the Word made flesh. In the Bible, you get the word. The word, which is the Om or the Pranavadhvani, the supreme syllable, is made flesh and becomes an incarnation. There's a concept due to Veda Vyasa. Veda Vyasa, another name we should know. Vyasa was a person who compiled and codified the Vedas. He must have been a very remarkable personality. And with the same Vyasa who did all this, we do not really know. But assuming it is the same person, he must have been an extraordinary genius. He codified the Vedas into four, classified them, called Veda Vinyasa, separately classifying them into four. Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, Atharva Veda. And he wrote the 18 Puranas. Puranas are stories in which truths is being told to a person who can't really comprehend the complicated philosophy, like we tell stories to children, in ever so many forms so that the truth is brought out. There are 18 such Puranas, and the largest Purana is called the Skanda Purana. It was 95,000 slokas. And the smallest is perhaps of 25 to 30,000 slokas. So you can immediately make a quick calculation of how many millions of verses must have been there. And he is the writer of the Mahabharata. Mahabharata contains 100,000 verses. So he went on dictating the Mahabharata, and the story is that Lord Ganesha, you are familiar with Ganesha, of course. Ganesha took his tusk off, a portion of it as a pen, he went on writing. He was the writer. And the condition was, Ganesha said, I will keep writing provided you don't stop. You should continuously keep dictating to me. Even if you stop for a fraction of a second, I am quits. Vedavyasa said, yes, I'll keep on dictating. I'll not stop at all. But when he's writing, when he's continuously dictating thousands of verses, he needs a few seconds to be able to compose a few hundred more. So then he throws a googly. You know what's a googly? In cricket, you throw a ball which appears to be a leg break, which is an off break. So there's just a twist in that verse, and Ganesha has to think about the meaning. Because Vyasa made a condition, I will keep dictating non-stop, but my condition is you should not write down the verse without understanding the meaning of that verse. So he throws now and then some twists. They are called Vyasa Kuta. Kuta means a twist. So such interesting things have happened. How could a person write 100,000 verses called Mahabharata? And he composed what are known as the Vyasa Sutras or the Brahma Sutras. So in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, we usually chant a verse remembering and eulogizing this great Vedavyasa. Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pullāra Vindāyata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purna Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha. O Vedavyasa, I bow down to you. Vishala Buddhe, your intelligence, your extraordinary intellectual prowess is so vast and so infinite, it appears to be. So I bow down to you, and you have composed this Gita and given it and lighted it, incorporated it in this great text called the Mahabharata. So there is Vedavyasa. He has, in one of the Puranas, created two immortal characters. It's important to know this because how the Indian tradition has thrown up these characters like the Krishna and Arjuna and so on. Now the latest is Ramakrishna Vivekananda, to which I will come. So he said, the infinite Lord, who is one vast, infinite, Sat Chit Ananda Swarupa, existence, knowledge, bliss absolute, as it were, has divided himself into two portions. He can't be divided because indivisible. But imagine he divides himself into two. One portion is called God, the other portion is called man. The same idea that God created man in his own image in the Bible, same idea. Man is not apart from God. One infinite reality called Satchidananda, infinite, vast, indivisible, pure consciousness, divides itself as it were into two. One is called Nara, the other is called Narayana. Nara is man, including woman of course, and Narayana is God himself. Why is it necessary? Because the whole world consists of only these two. All of us are human beings. We call them Jiva in Sanskrit. And we see the world around us, which is called Jagat. And there is a God whom we worship called Ishvara. The whole gamut of spiritual existence, spiritual truths is Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara. The individual human being, Jagat, this world, and Ishvara, the God whom we worship. To have a clear understanding of Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara is the responsibility of all the religions. Every religion worth its name should be able to clearly spell out what is the idea of the Jiva, Jagat and Ishvara that religion has. Christianity has a take on this, Islam has some other thing, and so on. So this cosmic mystery has to be solved, understood, and religions down the centuries have tried to find out what is the meaning of existence through understanding of Jiva, Jagat and Ishvara. Ishvara, who is God, creates the Nara, the man, and Nara and Narayana, man and God, talk to each other. That is this dialogue. Who imparts knowledge to man? Knowledge can come to man only from the divine source, which is God. And unless God teaches man, man can never acquire knowledge. You call it God. If you don't like the word God, you can substitute it by nature if you like, or substitute it by a body of knowledge which has been handed down centuries. In science, how did science grow? A body of knowledge called science has been handed over by scientists over the centuries, and any new student of science comes in and then studies these texts, understands them, and the knowledge grows, contributes to these texts. Now, man is always in trouble, as all of us are. Are we in trouble? No. Some kind of a trouble we always pass through. Once again, Swami Vivekananda says, our rishis were great generalizers and classifiers. You generalize and classify everything. When too many things come up, you classify them. All of you know, those who work in the computers, etc., you create folders separately. And when you arrange things even in the kitchen, for example, forks here, spoons here, cups here, plates there. So you have different cupboards for each of them. Those of you are the wardrobes, for example. So there's a classification scheme, and our ancient rishis, great classifiers of ideas, classifiers of anything which you experience in this world. They said, how many kinds of troubles can be there in the world? Suppose they ask you, are you in trouble? Yes. What happened? You have a toothache. Oh, that's one kind of trouble. What other trouble? I was just coming along the street. A dog was chasing me. I didn't know what to do. Another kind of trouble. And one more trouble. My neighbor is quarreling with me constantly. There is a third trouble. Suddenly there's a super cyclone. In India we are passing through this crisis now. Super cyclone and floods and tsunami. Suddenly the ocean becomes angry and chooses to invade man. And the birds, those who have seen the Hitchcock's horror film, it was used to be there about 50 years ago. It's a terrible film in which the birds decided to haunt man. Suddenly all the birds wake up, become terribly angry with man, and then chase man. And some years ago it was in the newspapers in West Bengal, from which I come. The snails, you know what's a snail? A little creature which moves very, very slowly, extremely slowly. So therefore we say, are you going to send it by email or S-mail? S-mail is snail mail. You write down and then put it in the post box. So suddenly in a village, hundreds of thousands of snails started invading. You open your kitchen, there's 100 snails there. And open your bathroom, there are hundreds of snails moving around. The entire village had to be evacuated. Which means if nature's fury comes upon man, man can't survive. And therefore the Shanti mantras which we chant in India, we say Dyaus Shantihi, Antarikshagum Shantihi, Prithvi Shantihi, Apas Shantihi, Oshadaya Shantihi, Vishve Deva Shantihi. Let there be peace on the earth, peace in the oceans. If the oceans are not peaceful, you get tsunami. Let there be peace in the environment, peace in the winds. Let the Vayu, the wind, be peaceful so that I don't get super cyclones. Everything should be peaceful, and I should be peaceful. Sama Shantiredhi, the entire world should be peaceful. That's one kind of trouble. They therefore said you can classify them into three categories. One is a trouble or a sorrow arising from my body and mind. I am not peaceful. I am well bodily, but my mind is agitated. That fellow insulted me, this fellow betrayed me, all kinds of problems mentally. That's called Adhyatmika Dukkha. The second kind of sorrow could be that arises from beings. Maybe dogs and cats, maybe cockroaches. I don't find cockroaches here. Do you have some? No. And the place from which I come, called the Belur Mutt, which is the headquarters of the Ramakrishna Mutt and the Ramakrishna Mission, mosquitoes. They are terrible fellows. The moment you sit for meditation, they are somewhere, they get the news and then come and disturb you. And extremely intelligent fellows, you can't really beat them. Sometimes we get so irritated, the mosquito is sitting there. You very carefully, you see this fellow, and then try to... It goes there and sees, now what? This is one kind of trouble. It's called bhuta. Bhuta means being. Adi bhautika dukkha. And the third is adi daivika, natural calamities, over which you have very little control. So man is always in sorrow, always in dukkha. Not always, sometimes. When we talk about dukkha, many people have told me, you Swamis overemphasize dukkha and trouble and say you should call on God. Life is not all sorrow, it's a mixture of sorrow and joy. Why not go on? The answer Vedanta gives you, please do go on. Till the time comes you will not be able to take it anymore. And you say, no, I want an end and cessation of sorrow completely and totally. Not temporarily, not suspension of sorrow for a moment, which we normally do when we go to movies and films or we take the other means. Temporarily my sorrow is suspended. People pay heavily to go to a movie and to weep, a tragedy there. You are weeping every day in daily life. Why do you go to and pay to weep? But you want to go to a world of fantasy so that you can forget your sorrows. No, I want my sorrow to end completely, permanently, totally, absolutely. Called Atyantika Dukkha Nivritti. Atyantika, total, Nivritti, cessation, Dukkha, sorrow. This is the goal of Vedanta. And along with that, I want Paramananda Samprapti. I want supreme happiness which will never cease. Is it possible? It is not possible in the world. The world can't offer this. But you have to go beyond the world mentally, transcend the world. And if you believe in God, you say God gives you infinite joy because it's a source of great joy. So man, who is a Nara, represented by Arjuna, and God, Narayana, represented by Sri Krishna. They are having a dialogue. Arjuna is asking questions of Sri Krishna, and Sri Krishna is answering. This is the Bhagavad Gita. And what was Arjuna's problem? I call it the Arjuna Syndrome, because the problem is ubiquitous. It affects everybody. All of us are Arjunas, remember this. Arjuna is not a human being, is a mythological, a real character who appears in the Mahabharata. He is a representative of man, representative of everybody. We are Arjuna, and we are sitting at the feet of Sri Krishna and trying to learn. What was Arjuna's problem? In a very, very simple language, Arjuna's problem was, he was trying to do things which he was not supposed to be doing, and not doing things he is supposed to do. Very simple. All of us do that. When you are supposed to be doing something, you want to do something else. Arjuna was a great warrior. He was a general of a huge army, and the fight is about to begin. Don't ask whether fighting is good or battle is good or bad, because Pandavas didn't want war. Remember that. They were challenged, and the Kauravas wanted war, and when you are challenged, of course, you have to defend yourself. War is about to begin. The entire army was depending on Arjuna's leadership. And before the war began, Arjuna is full of valor, prowess. Read the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. He tells Sri Krishna is the Sarathi, meaning the charioteer or the driver of a car. Driver is very important in a car. Sri Krishna cleans the chariot, makes everything ready. The philosophical and the spiritual significance, people say, is that the charioteer is a person who guides you through life. In the Kathopanishad, chariot is called the buddhi, the higher intelligence which guides you. And the chariot is the body, and the person sitting in the body is the jiva, is the Arjuna. in the modern language, you know who is the charioteer who guides you? He is called the GPS. G for God. And when you keep moving, it's after a quarter of a mile, take the first exit. It keeps telling you. And when you miss it, take a U-turn, recalculating. The Upanishad tells you, take a U-turn, avritta chakshura amritatvamichan. You have gone too far into the world of being and becoming, too far into enjoyment, now take a U-turn. Taking a U-turn is religion. And if you don't take a U-turn, once again it will say take a U-turn, keep on yelling at you, and then recalculating. Because you recalculate your whole life, because your life has taken a U-turn. And those of us who have taken a U-turn and come to the monasteries and the nunneries, the GPS within you, the antaryami, the word used in Sanskrit, antaryami is inner regulator. He keeps on regulating from inside, do this, don't do this. So Sri Krishna is the charioteer, the global positioning system within you keeps constantly telling you when you should take an exit, when you should turn, when you should stop, and so on. Finally, when you attain the goal, the GPS tells you, you have reached your destination. That's so sweet to hear. Oh, I have reached my destination. The destination is just your left and you have reached your destination. You stop the car, get down, oh, I have reached it. So the God tells you from within when you should take a turn, what you should do. So Arjuna is in dire distress because he came for war with tremendous valor and courage and prowess. If you read the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, he says, Senayor Ubhayor Madhye Ratham Sthapayame Achyuta, O Krishna, position the chariot between the two armies so that I can see the faces of those who unfortunately are eager to die at my hands. That is the language used. Kair mayasa yodhavyam asmin ranasamudyame. Poor fellows, suddenly they thought it's good to die and they are eager to die at my hands. I want to see them. Sri Krishna being the mischievous Bhagavan, Sri Krishna's smile and Ramakrishna's smile are very deceptive. We are charmed by it and they give you a message which you can't so easily understand unless you go deeper into yourself. Sri Krishna smiles and says, all right, I'll keep the chariot. He could have positioned this anywhere. He straight takes the chariot and keeps them in front of Bhishma and Drona. Bhishma and Drona, the teachers who taught archery, the various skills of weaponry to Arjuna. So these are all the teachers of Arjuna. Bhishma Drona Pramukhataha in front of them. Uvata Partha Pashayitan. O Partha, O Arjuna, see. The moment Arjuna saw, my teacher Bhishma, my teacher Drona, I remember those days when my teacher Drona so compassionately, so carefully, so tenderly, so intelligently was nurturing me, was teaching me so many skills which I am now forced to use to kill him. How can I take this? Here are the Bhishma and the old man. No, I can't fight anymore. Suddenly the mood of Arjuna changes. Look at the drama happening, which happens in our lives every moment. We are very brave, we want to do something. Suddenly when you come to it, we collapse. What happens to us we don't really know. Suddenly you, what in English we call you, develop cold feet. You want to run away. You wish you are not there. This happens to most of us when we are about to face the examinations. When I was a principal of a college for nearly 3 decades, I used to keep a huge picture of Arjuna and Krishna in the office. When there is an exam, the students will come and say, what's happened to you? I am not at all well, I will not take the exam today. Say, look at this, this is what Arjuna said. Suddenly, at the point of examination, you have been preparing for days, for weeks, for months, you are just ready. When the moment of examination comes, something happens to you by which they can't face it. So we can't face challenges, we can't face problems, we can't face crisis. Something happens to us by which we feel we are unequal to the task which is before us. Then we cry, then we bring in what is known as alibi. No, it is not good to fight them. After all, Drona, Bhishma, they are my teachers, I should not kill them. Did Arjuna not know it before? Of course he knew. So when you become weak in mind, all kinds of arguments come to you. This is a lesson that Gita teaches. The Arjuna Syndrome, which is collapsing of your strength at the moment of crisis. Vishame samupasthitam. Vishama, crisis. Samupasthitam, suddenly has come to you. Kashmalamidam vishame samupasthitam. This weakness which has come to you at the moment of crisis. This is the Arjuna Syndrome which all of us face. If you face the problem will get solved in no time. Suddenly we say we can't face it anymore. And we bring in all kinds of arguments. Then the intelligence, crooked intelligence starts playing. You come up with 100 arguments why I should not do this. Then you talk about dharma, you talk about righteousness, you talk about the right conduct. You talk about how peace is better than war. Of course peace is better than war. Nobody wanted war, but when they compel you to go to war, what do? Then all the great truths which you have studied, you keep repeating so that you can avoid it. What was Sri Krishna's reaction? Seeing the state of Arjuna collapsing. The dramatic description of Arjuna collapsing is given in the first chapter. Sidanti mama gatrani tvakchaiva paridakhyate gandivam samsade hastad bhramati vachame manaha. My bow, my weapons are simply slipping off my hand. My head is reeling. I can't even stand anymore. And my mouth is getting dry. All symptoms of very high blood pressure. And is collapsing. Finally he said, I can't stand anymore. He sits down, deeply depressed and crying bitterly. Can you imagine Arjuna crying? A warrior of the highest order, Ashrupurna Kulekshanam, Vishidantam, depressed, deeply upset, sorrowing and crying, weeping bitterly. What would one normally do? You see somebody collapsing, immediately check the blood pressure, call a doctor. Sri Krishna had a whip in his hand. He was using it to whip the horses in the carriage. He took the whip and whipped Arjuna in words. What kind of hero are you? Such unmanliness has caught you at this hour of crisis? Come on, get up. Kshudram hridaya daurbulyam taktvottishta parantapa. Hridaya daurbulya, the weakness of the heart, tyaktva, giving it up. Uttishta, get up. You are a hero of the highest order. And still goes on weeping. Arjuna is not convinced. Arguments don't convince you. Some of you must have at least passed through crisis in life. No amount of argument really helps you. What we normally do nowadays in crisis, unfortunately, rather than going to God and crying to Him and asking for help, or going to some illumined soul, what do we normally now do? Anybody? You see, you have a mobile phone in your pocket and call your friend, call somebody, and then say, I am facing this. Remember, the person you are talking to is also full of sorrow. How can any human being help you? However much you argue, the sorrow is not going to go away. He endlessly keeps on arguing. And Bhagavan Sri Krishna does not give him any instruction, allowing Arjuna to cry, to weep, to go on arguing, lamenting. Why? Because the ego of Arjuna has to collapse. As long as you think you are right and Sri Krishna has not understood you properly, that idea should go. The greatest problem in our lives, the Arjuna Syndrome, which all of us have, which does not help us to overcome this sorrow, is we think we are not being understood. Suppose somebody advises you, don't worry, it will pass, the God is there with you. We are all, no, you don't understand what I am trying to say. You don't understand my problem at all. The feeling of not being understood is so predominant in your psyche that you don't want to overcome the problem. Sri Krishna is watching, cry a little more, little more. His sympathy appears to be very harsh, is to awaken Arjuna through whipping and asking him to behave like a man, like a brave soldier and the general of an army at that. Arjuna's ego still keeps arguing. And then he tells Krishna, Krishna, you don't understand, what we are doing is wrong. The omniscient Bhagavan is being addressed by Arjuna as an ignorant person who doesn't understand the issues. And he says, oh, but mahat papam kartum vyavasita vayam. We are going to commit a deadly sin. You are pushing me into this. This is not fair. Please don't do that. I can't fight. Krishna watches. Come on, little more. Go on. Appears to be cruel, but God watches, doesn't quickly intervene. Do you know why? If he intervened earlier on, we wouldn't really take it. We have to come, as they say, to the end of your tether. You have to come to the end of your tether and say you have to collapse and get crushed. And they say, I can't take it anymore. That point of breakdown has to come psychologically within you so that divine grace shall come upon you. Don't be frightened. This comes to all of us. At every point, this came to Ramakrishna, this came to Christ, everybody. When Satan tempted him, in the Bible it says, at the last point, he was helpless alone. Then when you collapse, when a little ego gets completely pulverized, pounded and crushed and burnt away, then the Lord intervenes. Second chapter, Arjuna says, after all the arguments, declares himself as a disciple. See, God, Guru, Master does not help you, does not intervene unless you declare yourself as a disciple and ask for his help. This is extremely vital. You have to seek his help. Even without your seeking, he may help you, but it will not be useful for you. You will not take it. Arjuna says, I am helpless. I am completely and totally helpless. I don't know what to do. So I am confused. This confusion is called moha. Moha means delusion. And delusion gives rise to shoka or depression. I do not know what is right and wrong. I do not know what is dharma and adharma. I am totally confused. So please tell me, O Krishna, what is good for me? I can't find out what is good for me. I am your disciple. Please instruct me. I have surrendered myself to you. I just can't do anything else. Karpanya dosho apahata svabhava prichhami tvam dharma sammodha chetaha yachreyasyan nischitam bruhitan me sishyasteham shadhimam tvam prapannam. So I am confused. I don't know what's good for me. You please tell me. When the ego completely collapses and is obliterated and burnt, then the Lord intervenes. The Lord is born when the ego is not there. The I has to die so that the Lord is born there. The birth of Christ and the birth of the incarnations of God, we talk about them. He is born at the midnight hour when the ego collapses. When everything is dark outside, when you see no light anywhere, When your ego completely collapses, you are helpless, then the Lord is born in your heart to bring light as a Messiah of peace, Messiah of wisdom. That is the symbolism. So Arjuna, being the great warrior, collapses and his ego has to die. Sri Ramakrishna said very figuratively, Ami molle ghuchi be jhanjal. Ami means I. Somebody said, when will I get realization? When I die, you will get realization. So when I die, what does it mean? When the I dies, when the little ego dies, then you are born to the eternal spirit. So Arjuna is the representative man, and Arjuna's little ego is what all of us have. And when it pushed to a crisis, at that point, the ego tries to survive. All of us know what's the ego. We say I at every moment. The American Psychological Association once upon a time conducted a survey. And the Americans were very fond of conducting surveys of all kinds of things and publishing papers. So they conducted a survey on what is the most commonly used English word. They said I. Everybody uses this I hundreds of times in a day. You know what is the I, but if I ask you, where is the I located? What is it? Can you say where is the I located in you? I located, it's there, where is it? The answer given by Vedanta is very interesting. Why did you not come for the lecture? Oh, I have very bad toothache, I am not at all well. My tooths are not well. My teeth are not well, but I say I am not well. My eye is identified with the tooth. When I have terrible pain in the tooth, my eye is completely in the tooth. The eye identifies with the intellect. I write a small book. It's very easy to write books these days. You go to Google, Control-C, Control-V, copy-paste, and immediately, and then you shuffle paragraphs here and there, and Swami Atmapriyananda in bold letters. And somebody says, Swami, you have written a book. Oh, that's simply copied from here and there. It's not original. What do you mean? Don't talk to me anymore. I got flared up when my book is being criticized. The book is not me, but the I is identified with the intellect at that time. The I identifies with my indriyas, with my senses. Oh, you have a beautiful hairstyle. Yeah, isn't it? Oh, yes. The I is identifying with the hair. The I is identifying with my senses, with the body, with the mind, with the intellect. A series of identifications which Vedanta calls abhinivesha. The very interesting word means identifications. Now, can the I remain without identification? These are profound questions asked in very simple language. We say I. And we have just now discovered that the I exists through series of identifications. I ask the question, is it possible for the I to remain completely unidentified with anything? I hooks on to something. I hooks on to, even externally, to my car. When my car is damaged, I feel, I am gone. You are not gone, your car is gone. When you can't find the mobile phone in your pocket, how restless people feel. Where did I keep it? My whole life is there. I am there in that. I identifies with my credit card, with my Android phone, with my car, with my house, with my body, mind, intellect. A series of identifications externally and internally. Now I ask a question. Is it possible for the I to remain completely disidentified? Think about this. When the I is completely disentangled, disidentified with everything, I collapses. I is a ghost which can't remain without identifying with something. You don't know where it is. Suddenly it pops up as this. Identification with something is through relationship. What is relationship? I am related to this, I am related to that, I am related to him or her. That means I am identified with her, identified with him, identified with this. Relationship always expresses in the sixth sense in Sanskrit grammar, also in English. I becomes my, mine. I is aham and mine is mama. So the I-ness and the my-ness is called ahankara and mamakara. Ahankara, the sense of I, egoism, and mamakara, the sense of my-ness or I belonging to something, identifying with something. So my-ness or mamakara is an essential characteristic of I-ness or ahankara. What they now call the standalone I. We say, do you have a LAN in your computer? Local area network. No, I have a standalone computer. So do you have a standalone I? When the I stands alone, it collapses. I has to be networked with everything which it bumps into, and through the networking, I sustains itself. So the whole trick in Vedanta is called sadhana, or the spiritual practice, is to how to cut this network. It has been knotted. There is a knot which you have put there, the I is hooked on there. And the knot itself is the I. Knot between what? Knot between jada and chetana. Conscious and the unconscious. It's called chit jada granthi. The knot between chit, which is consciousness, and jada, which is insentient, which is unconscious. When these two come together, the I comes in. Simplest example of our body. Are we conscious or unconscious? Of course I am conscious, I am talking to you or listening to me. But the body itself is not conscious. This moment if I die, the body can't speak, the body can't eat. So the body itself is unconscious, but there is a consciousness which is permeating this body, animating this body. And what I call the jiva, the I, is a peculiar combination of the conscious and the unconscious, jada and chaitanya. And these two are coming together in juxtaposition, and there's a knot between them, and this knot is called chid jada granthi. Now you have to loosen this granthi. Takes a long time to loosen, it's so tight. So Vedanta has a very harsh prescription. Rather than going for a homeopathic medicine or oral medicine, go to a surgeon and says, cut it off. Surgeon takes his knife, cut it off, finished. Cut the Gordian knot. The Bible also says this, cut the Gordian, cut off this. The Sadguru, the teacher, is a surgeon. And God is a great surgeon who takes his knife and then cuts it off. What is this knife? This knife is called detachment, viveka and vairagya. Discrimination between the real and the unreal, between the true and the untrue, between the eternal and the non-eternal, and the vairagya, the capacity to be able to stick to the real and reject the unreal. Asanga shastrena dridhena chitva, Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter. Using this great weapon, knife of detachment, cut off. It will bleed, of course. Don't worry, we will give you lots of blood. The Bhagavan gives you blood, pumps in blood, and is a great surgeon. Once and for all, cure this disease. We have been suffering for too long, and unless you cure this disease, you have to continue to suffer. So the I, which is remaining as the mine, and the ahankara, which is manifesting as the mamakara, have to go. This is the essence of all the religions in the world. Every religious prophet, every religious text, and every incarnation of God, they have preached only one doctrine: the I and the mine have to be renounced. and in their place God has to take its place. The meaning of the cross, we have heard from childhood in India. You put the I, in the computer when you say I, it will simply say one stroke like that. You cross the I, and you get the cross on which Christ was crucified. The I has to be cut out. And the I is cut out, then God is born there. That's called the resurrection of Christ. God resurrects from the grave. That means a new I is born in place of the old I which has been crucified and destroyed and killed. The new I is the I of God. The new I is an I of a spiritual person who is born anew. So Christ is born anew when the I actually collapses and dies. So Arjuna was pushed into this, and the Bhagavan gives him a heavy dose. We call the doctors when you say, when the immediately gives a first dose will be you take 4 tablets in a day for 3 days, and after that you can take 2, then after 2 weeks you can take 1 each. Why? The first is called knockout dose. So Sri Krishna gives him a punch, knockout dose, and this knockout dose is called Atmagyana. The realization of the self is the jnana, the knowledge of the Supreme Self, and that is a very powerful dose which knocks out everything. The I is gone, the mind is gone. If everything goes, how do you survive? Everything is not gone. It is replaced by infinite knowledge, infinite wisdom, and infinite bliss and infinite existence, Satchidananda Swarupa. You are assured that all your sorrows will come to an end when the knots of your heart are cut asunder, all your doubts will cease. Vidyate hridaya grantis chidyante sarva samshayaha kshiyante chasya karmani tasmin drishte paravare Mundakopanishad. All the knots of your heart are cut asunder, all your doubts are dispelled, all your sorrows come to an end. We ask in our stupidity, is there any simpler way of doing this rather than going to this operation? Many people are scared of operation. The answer is, you may go for a simpler method, but you keep suffering all your life. I don't mind suffering, but still let me go for a lesser procedure. Then the answer Vedanta will give you, please go on suffering, and we don't want to suffer. If you want to suffer, and if you want to go through sorrow all your life, please go ahead. Vedanta is not for you as yet. But a time will come, then you will weep and cry and wake up and say, I just can't take it anymore, do something for me. At that moment God intervenes and tells you, yes, there you are. A time will come to you, and nature will give you terrible blows, God forbid, and intelligent people like us, hope we are reasonably intelligent, otherwise you wouldn't be here, wake up before the shock treatment of nature begins. And therefore Vivekananda said, I preach only one thing, awake, 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 awake. Uttisthata, jagrata, prapyavaran nibodhata. The famous statement, the Kathopanishad. Uttisthata, rise, arise. Jagrata, awake. Prapyavaran nibodhata. Approach the illumined people who know, godly persons, and learn from them and be benefited. So today we have been approaching Sri Krishna for wisdom. We are the Arjuna, and may Sri Krishna remove all our sorrows, give us eternal bliss in which He Himself was immersed. Paramananda Madhavam. Whenever you think of Sri Krishna and Sri Ramakrishna, you will see the kind of bliss in which they were immersed. All the time they were moving in bliss, and they were in deep sorrow seeing all of us suffering. When the parents are in bliss and the children are suffering, the parents feel so terribly bad. Why don't you also share the same bliss? Come on, come unto me, ye that are weary and heavy laden, and I will give thee rest. This has been the call of the Lord since time immemorial of all religions. Let us all respond to this call and be sharers of this immortal great bliss. Thank you so much. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Om Peace, Peace, Peace. May this worship through words be an eternal offering unto Sri Ramakrishna, the Supreme Being. Om, that existence.